Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar hosted by the After School Alliance. I'm Leslie Brooks, the STEM manager for our After School STEM Hub, and we are so excited for our speaker today and about the out of school time youth engineering initiative they will be sharing about. Before we get started, I just wanted to make sure you are aware of a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be shared out to all of those who registered. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar by typing them in the Q&A box. And when entering a message in the chat, please make sure that the message is to all panelists and attendees. Okay, and with that, I am happy to introduce our speaker to you all. Nicki Sirianni is the Education Outreach and Marketing Manager at WGBH Education Foundation. She manages and collaborates on various engagement, outreach, and social media projects at WGBH, such as the engineering initiative we will be hearing about today. Nicki specializes in developing and implementing culturally relevant educational media that involve youth, educators, and communities with a focus on out-of-school time learning opportunities. And she was even selected to serve on the PBS Kids Advisory Council because of her expertise in this area. So we are thankful for Nicki being here today because WGBH is a dedicated partner in helping to share free, accessible materials with all of our out-of-school time partners and communities. So Nicki, thank you for joining us, and I will let you take it from here.
Thank you so much, Leslie. I so appreciate that. And thank you all for being here and joining us for this webinar. Today, I'm going to be sharing about Design Squad Latinx, which is a newer engineering program from our team here. I'm going to review just kind of how we developed the program and what it's all about, and then go through our research and development process as well. And then we'll kind of do a deep dive into the materials and all the resources that are available for you. And after that, we will have some time for questions. So we'll move on to next slide. So why Design Squad Latinx? Where did this kind of idea come from? Our team, who has been developing a lot of out-of-school time programs, especially around engineering, was kind of taking a look at the field and realizing that there was a really big underrepresentation of Hispanic or Latinx people in the STEM field, whether that be in jobs or pursuing career degrees. And here's just a sampling of some of the statistics that we were kind of looking at. And we don't think it's because there's a lack of talent or ability, but really we felt like maybe there was something missing its mark in the educational pipeline for STEM that's either discouraging Latinx people from pursuing these careers, or making them feel like for some reason that this was not for them. So we hoped to create a program that kind of championed the Latinx communities and creating something that really, for the middle school years when STEM identity formation is so key, really kind of maybe sparked interest and perhaps created new opportunities or interest or engagement in the engineering pipeline. So that's why we developed Design Squad Latinx. And next, I'd love to play for you our overview video so you can get a sense of what the program is all about.
From a young age, I have always been captivated by insects. Growing up in Peru, I first visited the Amazon rainforest in 7th grade. To me, this was a dream come true. It was there I met an entomologist from North Carolina State University who was doing research on wasps. This entomologist was kind enough to speak with me and show me how he conducted his research. The joy I felt sharing my passion with someone who understood me was overwhelming. It was this experience that solidified my desire to work in STEM and view the world through a scientific lens.
I grew up in a family of all boys and always felt that I needed to stand out, claim space for myself, and work really hard to achieve my goals. When I entered college and started taking classes in physics, I found myself surrounded by men. Once again, I was one of 2 female physics majors and the only Latina in my graduating class. But the same drive that I had as a kid inspired me to pursue a career in STEM and to change the status quo. 10 years later, it is still a passion of mine to encourage more Latinas to pursue careers in STEM.
Government, industry, researchers, and educators all agree that a strong engineering workforce is an essential part of the future economy in the U.S. and across the globe.
Despite the need for more engineers, young people of Latinx origin are disproportionately represented in the STEM pipeline and the field of engineering.
So, how do we engage more Latinx youth in engineering programming? This is where Design Squad Latinx comes in.
Funded by the National Science Foundation, Design Squad Latinx is a bilingual engineering program for kids ages 10 to 13.
Developed for and with Latinx communities, Design Squad Latinx has a large collection of free resources for kids and educators, ranging from fun animated videos to comprehensive training materials, all designed to give Latinx youth hands-on, meaningful experiences with engineering.
Through all of the program materials, youth are encouraged to draw on their funds of knowledge when tackling engineering challenges. Funds of knowledge are the accumulated knowledge, skills, talents, and abilities that people develop from life experiences with their families, communities, and cultures.
Design Squad Latinx helps educators and youth discover this knowledge, value its importance, and apply it to real-world engineering challenges.
Design Squad Latinx is designed so that educators can customize the modules to best meet the needs of their program.
There are 4 self-contained modules which can be used in different combinations, making Design Squad Latinx flexible and easy to use.
All of the modules contain a fun and engaging video, a wide variety of handouts, and client-centered engineering challenges.
Design Squad Latinx was created using a community-based approach. Produced in collaboration with a diverse team of advisors, Design Squad Latinx activities and materials went through many rounds of testing and feedback from community partners, educators, and youth.
Ready to bring a fun and empowering engineering program to your community and inspire the next generation of engineers?
Check out the Design Squad Latinx collection at pbslearningmedia.org and get your kids excited about engineering.
Great. So hopefully you got a sense of what the program is all about with that video. Now I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into kind of the core element of this program, which is our funds of knowledge approach. We really set out to create a program that focused on a strengths-based approach, right? So coming to kids with the sense that you already have a lot of knowledge that can be applicable to engineering. We don't want you to think that you know nothing. You bring a lot to the table. And part of that is activating their own funds of knowledge. So it was said in the video, but I just want to say it again. Funds of knowledge are the accumulated knowledge, skills, talents, and abilities that people, regardless of your origin, develop over time from your lived experience with your families, communities, and culture. And everybody has these experiences. So I want you to think about, did you have a family recipe that was taught to you by someone important to you? Do you have a holiday or celebration or tradition? All of those things are a part of your funds of knowledge and actually all can apply to STEM and the engineering field in general. And that's kind of the message we wanted to give to kids. So next slide, please. So in order to kind of move this forward, we developed a conceptual framework based around funds of knowledge and engineering education. So this is what we kind of built our program about. And the conceptual framework is first, you have to discover your funds of knowledge. So you have to acknowledge them, and educators can help elicit kids in thinking about what their abilities and talents, skills, and knowledge already are. And then the second piece of our framework is then valuing this knowledge, which I think to me is one of the most important parts of our framework. So once you've discovered this knowledge, they should be recognized and appreciated as valuable pieces of information that can be used in the engineering design process. And lastly, it's to then apply it. So helping kids make the bridge and this connection between the knowledge that they already have and the engineering design challenge, and encouraging them to use this knowledge that they already have when they seek to kind of tackle these engineering challenges. So next slide, please. So next, I'm going to play, this is actually a video clip from one of our professional development series on funds of knowledge. Our main advisor, our main content advisor, Dr. Alex Mejia, is an expert on funds of knowledge and engineering. And he, in this video series, kind of explains what it is, the history of it, why it's important, and then how to actually apply it in the STEM field. But I wanted to show you all a clip where he really explains the history of funds of knowledge and why it is so important that this is created, especially when thinking about working with students who are Latinx. So play the clip, please.
American roots. Funds of knowledge is the existing cultural knowledge and skills present in an individual's household, community, and culture. Every person has their own funds of knowledge, but this knowledge is not always recognized and appreciated, especially the knowledge from communities of color. I became interested in the topic of funds of knowledge during my graduate school, where my dissertation advisor invited me to be part of one of her research projects. It was through this experience that I started to make connections between my own personal story and how sometimes my own academic achievement and that of my classmates was perceived to be the result of inadequate home learning experiences, lack of parental support, and even my own culture, which could not be further from the truth. But these views created an acceptance of lowered expectations while serving to further marginalize Latinx youth, like me, from participating in STEM. In contrast, a funds of knowledge approach celebrates the experiences from home and culture that people have and creates openings and opportunities for Latinx youth to engage in STEM activities. In the early 90s, Carlos Vélez Ibáñez and James Greenberg sought to investigate how Latinx families in the Southwest U.S.-Mexico borderlands gain and share knowledge to respond to their economic, environmental, and social landscape. This collection of historical and socially accumulated cultural knowledge, skills, and practices, as well as the recognition of communities as education resources, is what became known as funds of knowledge. An example of funds of knowledge that the researchers described is how the Latinx families adapted to the lack of access to doctors. Many of the families described in the research were living in the sparsely populated Southwest, meaning there were very few doctors that were accessible or affordable for families. This situation led families to rely on and develop remedies and first aid procedures based on their ancestral folk medical knowledge. The primary goal of defining funds of knowledge in the research was to emphasize that this wealth of knowledge had a strategic importance for economic well-being and survival for Latinx families. Research into funds of knowledge continued in the 1980s and the 1990s, but this time specifically related to the education of Latinx students. The prevailing narrative at that time about Mexican American households was that they were inadequate at preparing children for school and that students came into the classroom as empty vessels. Researchers collaborated with and co-designed new narratives with Mexican American families that detailed the rich source of educational resources found in this community.
In these communities is what he was saying. So if you want to dig in more to funds of knowledge, I definitely encourage you to check out that series. It's really fascinating and has really been important not only for this project, but I think I've been able to apply it to a lot of my other work as well. So next slide, please. Great. So how did we actually go about developing the program that we went about developing? We worked in collaboration with Latinx communities in several different communities to not only just test out what we created, but also to get ideas and feedback on what we should be creating in general and to co-create the materials with them. So the first step is we did something called asset mapping, where we went to communities in Rhode Island, California, and Puerto Rico, and we just heard from the students and the educators and had them identify their they're assets, they're funds of knowledge for us. So tell us your skills, tell us what you know, tell us what you're interested in. And that really became the foundation for what we ended up designing. And I'll explain how it came out to play a little bit later on. But we took a lot of that information in and said, what do these communities already have? What are these students or kids really interested in? And how can we build a program around that knowledge? Then we took that and we started developing prototypes of different activities for the program. And we did multiple rounds of testing in sites in Rhode Island, California, Puerto Rico, and Massachusetts. And we got lots of wonderful feedback on the activities. And I cannot emphasize how important it is to actually, test out activities with the end users and get feedback from those who are doing it. And my favorite example of this is in the picture here in the bottom right. We were developing something on hydraulics, and we were like, how cool would it be to do an engineering hydraulics activity? And we gave kids syringes and water and hoses, and thinking like, oh, they'll get so into the hydraulics of it all. But no, it just turned into a massive water fight with middle schoolers where they were just squirting each other with the water. So again, just emphasizing the importance of prototype testing and actually getting your activities into the hands of your population that you're hoping to work with is so valuable and gives you just so much rich information and feedback. And we really took a lot of it to heart. So next slide, please. And then that was kind of how we went about developing the activities. And then we are now in the middle of doing a lot of research to gauging what is the impact and are our activities or this program having the impact that we hope it's having. So the first study that we did was a pilot study, which we did in 4 sites. We tested a portion of the program for 6 weeks just to see, instead of just testing the individual activities, how is this functioning as a full program? And again, lots of amazing, wonderful feedback from both the kids and from the educators as well. And what we really learned during this, and I should say that we were doing a lot of this testing and developing coming out of the pandemic or coming out of lockdown. And we really realized that out of school time programs, as I'm sure is surprising no one, has really been changing, and the needs are evolving a lot. And we were able to kind of adapt the program and materials to better meet the needs of where out of school time programs were at this moment. Originally, we conceptualized like a 10-week program. You do them all sequentially. And we're just finding, or we found through our testing, that was really not meeting the needs of the programs we were testing in. So we've actually switched the program so it's more modular. So you can pick and choose which activities you do. You can reconfigure the program or put it in different arrangements. And that way, if you have 2 weeks to do something, great, here's a 2-week program. If you have 10 weeks, great, here's how you can build a 10-week program, just giving that end user a lot more flexibility in what they were creating. And currently we're doing our implementation study where we are comparing our program to another comparable program to seeing what is the impact of doing Design Squad Latinx and using this funds of knowledge approach. Does it change kids' attitudes towards engineering, career goals, their sort of beliefs and attitudes and things like that? So happy to share those results once we have them. We're hoping to have them by the end of the summer. So next slide, please. Now, you might be thinking, where can I find all this stuff? Well, here's exactly where you can find it. This is our PBS Learning Media website. In it is our fully bilingual collection. So everything from videos to handouts to educator guides is available in both languages. It consists of a welcome guide. So it kind of gives you our overview video, which you watched earlier, and a PDF, just overview of the program and how to use the program. Then in it, there are 4 flexible modules, which can be mixed and matched and arranged in any way that fits your program needs. Each of the modules is between 2 to 3 sessions long. Each session is roughly an hour. And then we also in the collection have self-paced educator training. So it's an online training. It takes roughly 1 hour where you can learn about how to use the program. And then also we have a professional development series on funds of knowledge, which is the clip I showed you earlier, but there are 3 videos plus some reflection questions if you want to go deeper on that content. So you can see we've produced quite a bit. The menu here is how you navigate. You'll see the collection in English and then in Spanish. And all the videos also include captions, transcripts, and other things to make them accessible as possible, especially if you're working with a bilingual and multilingual population. Next slide, please. So now I'll just dig into more about what each of the actual modules are and what is the content and the actual activities built into them. So our first one is discover the design process. I say first, but it can really go in any order. But this one is great, especially if your kids are brand new to the design process or have never done it before. This is a 2-session module. The first one is we kind of modeled it after almost like an escape the room. You kind of have to solve different clues to figure out what the steps are in the design process. So it's really, really fun, really hands-on. And then the second session in this activity is what we call our client card challenge. One thing that we learned from asset mapping and talking with kids and developing these materials is that they really loved the idea of helping. And we wanted to activate that idea that you are engineering to help someone maybe in your community, someone you may know. So they have a series of 6 different clients, all who have a different problem. A lot of the problems are related to the environment, to food, to sports, also things of interest that kids told us that they were interested in. And the kids get to choose which client they want to help through engineering. So that's discover the design process. Next slide, please. Another module is exploring pulleys. So this is focusing more on simple machines. In the first session of exploring pulleys, students they have a raise the flag challenge where they have to use a pulley to raise a flag that they design a certain number of inches. And then the second day, or the second and third session, they get a series of clients who all have a problem that can be solved using a pulley, and they get to pick which client they help. So for example, one is a grandfather who wants to throw a birthday party for his grandson, and he needs help hoisting a piñata with a pulley. Another one is a friend or a girl has a cat who gets stuck in a tree a lot, so she needs a pulley system to be able to get her cat out of the tree. Again, we developed those clients based around a lot of the kids' interest in what they told us in. And then also you can see here an example of what are the handouts that come with the different modules, and each one also comes with a video. So now I'd like to play a clip from our What is a Pulley video. And this is in Spanish, just to give you a sense of what our materials look like in that language. So play the next clip.
Una polea es una máquina sencilla que consiste de una rueda con una ranura en la cual cabe una soga. La polea se puede usar para subir cosas, como un almuerzo o cualquier cosa que uno pudiera necesitar. Pero ¿cómo funcionan las poleas? Cuando se le aplica fuerza a un extremo de la soga, la polea cambia el sentido de la fuerza. Esto significa que cuando uno tira de la soga hacia abajo, el otro extremo de la soga es jalado hacia arriba. Si se tiene una sola polea, la cantidad de fuerza que se usa para tirar hacia abajo será igual que la fuerza que jala el objeto hacia arriba. Si se agrega una segunda polea, lo cual se llama un sistema de poleas 2-a-1, estás cambiando la distribución de cómo se aplica la fuerza. Por lo tanto, solo se necesita tirar hacia abajo con la mitad de la fuerza, lo cual facilita subir un objeto pesado.
Great. So that just gives you a taste of what the videos look like in Design Squad Latinx. They're usually animated explainers, just simple videos that help kids just understand the concept that they're working with for this engineering challenge. So next slide, please. So this is my personal favorite module. It's the Create Your Own Engineering Challenge. This is great, especially if your kids are very familiar with the engineering design process. In this one, they from start to finish design their own challenge. So they think about someone in their community, in their neighborhood who they want to help with engineering, think about the problem that they have, and then create an engineering design or prototype from start to finish. Next slide, please. And then finally, the last module, but also can be used just totally independently if you want to just do a showcasing exhibit of a different engineering challenge, is showcase your work. So this is about helping kids learn how to tell their engineering story and have some sort of presentation so they can share their work with their community. And we definitely recommend doing community events, bringing in community members, so kids can really have that opportunity to show all that they have learned through doing Design Squad Latinx. So next slide, please. And then here's just what the training and professional development materials look like. On the left is our leader training. This is the online training that you can take on your own. And on the right is that Funds of Knowledge series. And I just wanted to highlight that in addition to the videos, it also comes with background readings and essays and some other further articles if you really want to dig even deeper into Funds of Knowledge. So next slide, please. And this I'm really excited about coming soon. We are currently working on an event guide. So what it would be is taking all of these activities that we've developed, but repurposing them for more of a one-off event. So if you do a lot of community events or want to have like a community engineering challenge, any sort of like STEM night or STEM career fairs or what have you, that's what this would really be designed for. It will have a series of different hands-on engineering challenges, ideas for how to activate your community members or finding engineering partners who might want to help volunteer, be a part of this, tips for working with volunteers. It would include promotional materials, an event checklist to help you planning your event, and as well as a post-event survey. So we're hoping to publish this by the end of the summer and can definitely happily follow up with links for anyone who might be interested. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but all of these materials are completely and totally free. You can download them all for free, including the videos, so you don't have to worry about Wi-Fi or streaming them, and they're all there for you to use. So next slide, please. Great. I think that is all I have, and I'm happy to take questions now. My email is also there, though, if anybody would like to follow up offline afterwards.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nicki.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we can get to some of your questions. I know we don't have any yet in the chat or Q&A, but I guess I can start us off with one. Nicki, you have your email there. Can people who begin using the program email you any feedback, or what would be like the feedback process?
Oh, that would be amazing. So built into the online training we do have a feedback form right in there, and we'd love to get feedback on that training. But if you have any suggestions, we're always looking to improve the work that we do and hear about how our work is being used and adapted to meet your needs. Like we are open to any and all of that feedback. So would really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions right now? And no worry about joining late.
What age group? Yeah, great question. So we say our sweet spot is, or we developed for ages 10 to 13, so that middle school year, but I definitely think, and we have recommendations in our guide for depending on how you want to mix and match the modules. I think you can age up or down. I think something like the create your own can definitely go up even to high school. The more open-ended engineering challenges, especially for kids who've had exposure to the design process before. And then I think things like the Discover the Design process, where it might be their first time, but it's a really fun hands-on. I think that can go lower to even upper elementary, or I'm trying to say early and elementary at the same time. Upper elementary, I think, would be totally appropriate for that too. But 10 to 13 is what we usually say is right on target.
Thanks, Nicki. And there's one in the Q&A. It says, are you planning to develop additional modules?
So not as of right now for this program. There are no plans, but there are a lot of other Design Squad programs out there already that I would encourage people to check out. We have, just off the top of my head, and these are all available on PBS Learning Media, Design Squad Nation is our earliest kind of collection, and those are one-off engineering challenges. We have Design Squad Maker. If you function in Makerspace or have a Makerspace group, there's a whole program for Makerspaces. And then we have Design Squad Global, which were these global clubs that we were running, but you could definitely still use the program materials independent of, we're no longer able to pair clubs globally, but you can definitely still use all the engineering challenges. And there's one in there, Inventing Green, if you're interested in sustainability and engineering as a part of that program. So lots of stuff from Design Squad already out there.
Wonderful. And then one person asked, how long have you been running this program? It's fairly new, right?
It's brand new. So we've been doing and by running it, we're doing our implementation study. So we started last summer and we're still running it through this summer. So it's brand new, but it's been fully published for about a year now, and it's free for anyone to take those materials and run the program. But we haven't started, we're just starting to actively promote it. So I'd be surprised if a lot of people are finding it.
And then do you provide any in-person training on the modules, or is it all the online material?
It's all the online materials as of right now, but I would love that feedback if an in-person training would be helpful. I think that's something our team would definitely be open to running.
Okay, wonderful. Let's see, one more person asked about the materials that you use when you're doing the program with the kids. Is it,
Yeah.
it looks inexpensive and recycled? Like,
That is our bread and butter. We call them recycled treasures. So all of the, we have a master materials list which you can find as a part of the collection. Everything a part of that we, use for our activities are low cost materials that you can find easily either around your house or at craft stores or at like an office supply store or, that big Amazon usually. We love raiding a recycling bin. So it's a lot of things like cardboard, tape, things like that. So most of the activities are pretty easy to supply for, and might be stuff you already have probably around your program or house. And we also sometimes encourage kids to bring in stuff from home, raid those recycling bins for milk cartons and things like that.
No, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And then another question, what makes it more Latinx? In Spanish, the person's asking, what if I have a multicultural program? And I think this question came from someone who joined late, so they might have missed the funds of knowledge portion as well that kind of digs in a little more.
Yeah, there are a couple key elements that we incorporated into the program to make it Latinx specific. I mean, first thing is bilingual, and I know Spanish is not, we only were able to translate in Spanish, which I know is not representative of all of Latin America, but it is fully bilingual, which is one thing. Modeling and representation, all of our hosts or people featured in the program are all of Latinx origin, which I think is really important. Additionally, we included pláticas or stories encouraged in part of the materials, which are little conversations that happen to elicit funds of knowledge and talk about home, community, and culture, which is a big part of activating that funds of knowledge, which is what we talked about. And then lastly, we also tie in historical examples. For example, we have a whole thing about simple machines being used to build the pyramids in ancient Mexico, to tie into kids that they are part of a long historical line of engineers. This is not new, having Latinx people be a part of engineering and do amazing engineering things. So all of that has been an important part of making this feel more Latinx and more representative.
All right, well,
Great.
Any other last minute questions? Otherwise, I will close us out. I'm just scouring the chat to make sure.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you all so much for your time.
All right. Okay, well, again, thank you, Nicki, and thank you to everyone for joining us in this webinar today. We will be sharing the webinar recording and additional resources in a follow-up email to you all. And in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your afternoon and have a good rest of your week. Thank you.
Bye all.